You're listening to Soaring Through the Depths, an innovative New Age podcast. We are Lindsay Marin, integrative multidimensional healer and spiritual mentor,
and Andrea Lauren, spirit council medium, healer, and intuitive life coach.
Join us as we talk all things spiritual, lifting you into the awakening of your divine potential.
Dive deep with us into the body, mind, spirit, and far beyond as we explore healing, expansion, creation, and the evolution of humanity to the next level of consciousness.
This is Soaring Through the Depths.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I am Andrea.
And I'm Lindsay.
And today we will be talking about fear. This is part one of a 3-part podcast series that we have put together, where we will be discussing how current events in our reality today is aiding in the spiritual evolution on a collective level as well as a personal level.
And I just wanted to touch on the reason why we chose this topic. One of the reasons, and why we feel like it's important to share with people, is that it's really easy to be overwhelmed and consumed by fear when there are a lot of changes happening in the world. And throughout all of this, what we want people to see is that there's actually higher meaning in all of it that you can use to help your own progress and help change the collective, the collective consciousness of the world through all of it. Yeah.
And how we're growing into becoming a unified collective conscience, like Christ consciousness. And everything that we're experiencing on a collective level, especially now in these days and days ahead, is aiding in this process by breaking down old systems to in old realities to usher in this new way of being.
New way of being, yes.
Yeah.
So what exactly happened this year, in the beginning of the year? What was your experience in the beginning of all of this when the whole COVID thing came up?
Well, I think for me, I was going to say that would the biggest, the front runner, I think, for all of us on a collective level for sure, was the COVID-19 outbreak. And so I can remember, it feels like so long ago now, but
yeah, right?
And we're still in it. That's just a hashtag day 54. So, but I think in the very beginning, I remember, it being brought into our awareness because, it started overseas. And so for me, I didn't really think that it was going to affect us here in the States. Because, there's things that pop up all the time. And it's like, it's that the fear is set in through media and other outlets that, it could be impending doom for us here. But I think by the time that COVID-19 did reach the States, it was
different than what you see a lot of times, where it's like, oh, this could happen, and it fizzles out. But with this, it actually started to roll, which got really scary for a lot of people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think for myself, because I tend to
have an ego moment.
Hey now, I tend to view most things from a spiritual perspective.
Right. Same.
And that's just daily working with spirit. I see this stuff. So at first I didn't really feel too much fear around it. I was more excited in the aspect of, I'm like, wow, this is really playing out. Like, this is playing out in the aspect of the grand awakening of our spiritual evolution. But as time started to progress, I started to see more and more fear coming into the collective reality, which the collective reality is the energy and the perceptions of all of us combined together. We create this large mass of energy, and that's the collective energy. Um, and especially for, like we touched on in our last episode, of empaths in particular can really feel the collective energy themselves. And when you're able to differentiate what is yours and what isn't yours, then you can really tap into what is taking place on that collective level. So that is where I started to realize, wow, there's a lot of fear that is coming in to this. And it just continued to grow and grow and grow. So my focus in the beginning was on that. And then slowly it started to affect me on a personal level, because that's where we started to experience, businesses shutting down. Where I live, we went into, we had a stay-at-home order placed on us in our state, and then schools shut down. And so slowly, in the beginning it was slowly, but then all of a sudden there was this rapid wave of change that was happening on all different aspects within my life, as well as, and I know that was happening on a collective level. Can you relate to that? Like, what can you give us your experience?
Yeah, really similar in that I was definitely looking at it from a higher perspective and on a spiritual level, but at the same time I also felt on a human, like personal level, very much inconvenienced. And I refused to feed into it in the beginning because I'm such a I don't know how you would, a warrior for living a fearless life, that I refuse to get sucked into the fear. I have this belief that fear is a way for the powers that be to keep us in control, because when we are in fear, we lose a lot of our ability to make decisions and make the right decisions. So, and we tend to run to anybody who seems to be wanting to show us the way, whether that be
Yes. The
good or
savior
the
syndrome
savior.
is what I
Yes,
call it. The savior
exactly.
syndrome.
Which is
Um,
really scary. Yeah.
yes. And I
Yeah.
think, real quick, can you touch on a little bit for our listeners and our viewers exactly what you mean by the powers that be?
Ah, yes. So we did want to put out a little disclaimer that we do not identify with any type of political party, any type of, neither of us actually hold any specific beliefs when it comes to that, other than the fact that we see everything from a higher perspective. And when we touch on, if I say the powers that be, honestly, I don't even know. And I don't think any of us really know underneath of all of this, underneath of government, underneath of everything. It really, what we're talking about is a lower vibration energy, which lower vibration is anything, it's old, it's stagnant, it's trying to keep control. It's, and not always through the right means.
Right. Imagine like a horizontal line, and on that line is the vibration, that lower vibration. And there are many different things that reside on that vibration if it matches its frequency. So for those who, and this ties in perfectly with fear, because for those that fall into fear, guilt, shame, all those things bring your vibration down. And the more that you focus on that and you manifest that within yourself, you reside lower and lower on that frequency. So the powers that be, they reside on that horizontal line, like, so whoever that is or resonates with that frequency.
Yeah, it may not specifically be people that we're talking about. It's just this lower energy that has been a part of the world for as far back as history goes, where we had people trying to control other people, people enslaving other people, people wanting power, people wanting wealth, and using any means to get it. And we
Taking
really, and
advantage of
taking
others
advantage,
through
yeah, and wars, and
emotions.
yeah, all of these things that have been this way of living for really up until more recently, that are slowly starting to break away in all of this. And we're actually seeing, I mean, you and I are seeing, that this higher vibration, the whole entire world is evolving, and we're breaking out of that.
Right.
So this lower vibration is just something, it may not be a specific person or people or group, but it is a lower way of being that is not working anymore.
Right.
I think that was a long explanation.
It was, but it was good.
But
It was good.
yes,
I think it was necessary. The
it's
context
necessary
there
because
was
this will
necessary.
tie in with the next two episodes when we do talk more about different aspects of all of this that's been of the things that have been happening this year.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Very much agreed. Okay. So collectively with COVID, and also not shortly, but as you know, as it progressed, as
Mhm.
COVID began to take center stage within the United States and then progress, further over time, we also started to see scarcity, um, which, can trigger the fight or flight response,
Mhm.
especially for, because our like the nature of us as humans, you go into this fight or flight because your main source, of survival
Mhm.
is to, make sure that you have the needs to
Your
do
needs
so.
met. Yeah.
It goes down to, like, your most basic needs. And
Mhm.
so, we started seeing scarcity there, and then
We
we
start
started
seeing
to see,
hoarding, people
right,
hoarding,
hoarding,
the
right. And
stores
then
blowing up, like where people were, you know, taking over the stores and buying things. And there was a lot of, it didn't matter. There was no humanity, like human, there wasn't like kindness necessarily there. People
right.
were scavenging. People were scared.
Yeah. And then you had, your select few that were, you know, able to take these items and use that to their advantage
Hmm.
by, trying to sell them
Hmm.
and take advantage of people there because they knew that they were going to need those items.
Right.
And so seeing all of this play out in our collective society, and then we also had uproars in the streets, and it started to create this division amongst others, especially with the scarcity. It's all collectively just came to a head together.
Yeah.
And this is where both Lindsay and I started to really see the collective consciousness switch to fear. Like, it was
Right.
a very heavy, solid fear base.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's, for us, one of the most important reasons why we're sharing this today is because we really want to shed light on the beauty of these experiences and why they're coming into our collective conscious, and how they are actually, like we said in the beginning, aiding in our spiritual evolution, and on personal levels bringing about spiritual awakenings for many people, and waking people up to who they really are, on a spiritual essence level, so to say.
Right.
Would you
Yeah.
agree?
Yes, totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
um I'm trying to think. I was trying to look at my.
I was going to add in that a lot of the fear came from the fear of the unknown. And that's something that not even just during crisis situations is something that comes up for people, but it really is a lot of the fears that we have in general are over trying to see a future when there really is never any map of the future. We all have free will, and each of our decisions takes us down a different path. So fear of the unknown was a big one during this whole thing. And it's really something that you can relate to everything in our lives when it comes to fear, that we really are afraid of not knowing what's ahead. And
Yes.
really that starts to, what happens is our brain is like trying to protect us and saying, well, it could be this situation or this situation. It could be any of these. And so what we do is we start to spiral. We go through this cycle of that any of these things can happen, and we need to be like, our brain wants to prepare us for all of them, which is why you see people hoarding, why you see people starting to bunker down, and why we just saw people really kind of lose it for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up, because that also ties in with the whole aspect of the fight or flight, like that basic
Yeah,
survival
right, it all does come
need.
down to, yeah, it's a survival.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so seeing this from a higher perspective, where we're moving into, um, in this evolution, is these ways of being are no longer going to serve us.
Right.
They're outdated. They're not
Hmm.
needed anymore.
Yeah.
And in place of going into that space of fight or flight or the unknown, all of these things causing fear,
Mhm.
you start stepping into this place of knowingness, trust, and faith,
Mhm.
and using your tools, your spiritual tools that we all have within us. And the
Mhm.
biggest one is your intuition. And so, again, just I'll briefly go over that for any viewers that haven't seen our prior episodes, but
Mhm.
your intuition is that still small voice within you. Um, it's also known as your gut feeling.
Yeah.
But the best way that you can differentiate the two, whether it's your the ego based voice in your head, which is attached to your survival and like that program that's there to keep you safe,
Mhm.
versus your intuition, is the ego voice is going to be loud, fast paced. It's going to cause anxiety or nervousness, or
Mhm.
uh, it can be very demanding and very loud in your head. As where your intuition is this knowing that a good example is if you have this thought come up in your head and you're like, wow, where'd that come from? Because it was like a solid piece of advice, or
Mhm.
this knowing of what you should do next, or in a situation that you're in, and it just kind of comes out of nowhere and you don't really know where that came from. Or the best way that I love to explain it to my clients is it's a still small voice. It's the one that's never loud, it's never prude or rude, or it's
Mhm.
it's just sitting in the back and it's like
Yeah.
whispering to you, and that's your
Mhm.
intuition. And again, I know in society a lot of us have grown up with the knowing of like that gut feeling, just listen to your gut, listen to your gut.
Right.
That is your intuition, and it
Mhm.
will not steer you wrong.
Right.
So that's the beauty within that aspect of the things that are taking place. Where there's fear, we're moving in to these aspects on a higher level.
Using our intuition.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was also going to say your intuition will, like kind of what you said, but your intuition when you're getting information that way will never feel like anxiety. It will never feel like something.
Pressuring you, or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. If that's what it is, then it's not your intuition.
Right.
Yeah. It's more of a like a light turning on in your brain that's like all of a sudden I know something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you follow this is solid advice, guys. So if you
I
follow this,
know.
you can't go wrong. And that is again one of our instinctual needs, that our abilities that we have, just like we have to keep ourselves safe and away from things that could harm us.
Mhm.
That is there too. We're just now,
Yeah.
a lot of people are really starting to learn how to incorporate that into their lives and to use that for navigation as well.
Yeah. And the sad part is that most of us have not been brought up in a way that emphasizes listening to your intuition. But it is one of the senses. It goes right along with smell, touch, taste, hearing, like everything.
Right.
It's, it's one of your senses. And honestly, anything that has been turned off in society is over the what I was talking about, like over the past with people trying to control other people. Anything that has been there that has been empowering to the individual has been erased over the years, because
Yes.
you can't control people who are spiritually enlightened.
Yes. And when you don't have the ability to control, then you're
You don't have
going to
power.
lose the power. And
Right,
it's all
exactly.
about the power, and which ties right back into the powers that be. So they when I say they, again, it's this collective energy.
Mhm.
um it's a very strategic energy and very intelligent energy that
Mhm.
finds the things that they know will work to divide and
Keep us
conquer. And
yeah, and
fear
keep us
is
down. Yeah.
fear is like the large,
Yeah.
one of the biggest ones. It always makes me think of that movie Monsters Inc. Do you
Mhm.
remember how the monsters would sneak into the closet at night and they would scare children
Yeah.
and bring them into fear, because it would fuel their energy into these
Yeah.
capsules and they would have to take them back. And
Right.
that's how they were feeding themselves. That's how they were harvesting energy. It's the
Uh-huh.
same exact concept here.
Yeah.
So stepping out of fear, which is nothing but an illusion,
Mhm.
and into faith and trust, trusting in yourself, trusting in a higher divine power, trusting in the higher vibrations that you are able to pull yourself into at any time,
Mhm.
which we will go over that in another episode of what different types of emotions that can pull you into a higher vibration. But if you're
Mhm.
interested in that, I would suggest or encourage you to do a little bit of research online, and you can look up what emotions hold a higher vibration or frequency level, and maybe create like a little self practice that you can do every day.
Yeah.
um
I think we are going to touch on that a little bit towards the end. We are going to
yeah,
give some tips on how to move into this space, because
right,
really it's something that is kind of hard to explain until you understand. I guess it's more like in this episode, we're really emphasizing what is it that's causing the fear, and what's actually happening on an energetic level to help, because when you're aware of it, that's when you can start to heal it.
yes,
Yeah. So
I do agree.
yeah. So really through all of this, we're seeing a change in energy. We're seeing, we saw the fear come in. We saw the division happen, which was quarantine. So
Hmm.
now our businesses are shut down. Our daily lives are basically closed down, and we're stuck sitting by ourselves without the social interaction that we once had. And that's the division part, is dividing us from each other, because that is another way to control people. When people band together, they become more powerful. And if you can close people down and keep them separated and take away, cover their faces, and make it so that they don't even have the emotional exchange, or they try to make it so that we have no emotional exchange, it really is trying to keep us at a lower level.
Yes. And communication, being able
Mm-hmm.
to communicate with others. It made me think when you brought up the face coverings or the
Yeah.
masks, because I have a daughter who is deaf, and she relies, and we're actively, in the deaf community as well, where we're at. And that was one of the issues that we saw within that community is, they rely a lot on reading lips. So with
Mm-hmm.
covering, you know the face with the mask or your mouth, it even makes it hard for even harder. I think we tend to forget about those that rely on, other senses more.
Yeah.
It really made it difficult for them. But I think or where I would like to take
Mm-hmm.
this current here, is how once we started getting through, or we started experiencing,
The calm sort of between
I was going to say
the calm
experiencing
and the
what
low
we
point.
just talked about, the scarcity, the fight or flight, the survival, all of
Yeah.
that. Slowly but surely the light started to shine
Mm-hmm.
throughout this experience
I was
on a
right there
collective
with you.
level.
I was
Yeah.
ready to turn this the same
Yeah.
way. So yeah, let's get into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
It was sort of like being in the eye of the storm. When you get past the storm, the first wall of the storm, and you have that middle point where it's calm, and all of a sudden people realize, okay, this is the new normal. I'm no longer triggered by change. I'm settled into where I am. And what started happening?
collectively, what I saw was I started to see people stepping away from being consumed by
The lack
the
of
lack
what they,
thereof,
yeah.
kind of coming out of that shock,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing how this, and we'll touch on this, how it affects on a personal level, but seeing how you're stuck inside, you're sitting with yourself, and all it starts to bring to light all the things that aren't serving you in your own life, and the things that are affecting you or holding you back. um, but when all of that is stripped away, you start to see things that you haven't really seen before. And one of the most
Mm-hmm.
beautiful things that I saw come from this was the desire for people to put down the consumption of the mindless watching of episodes, whether it's TV, whether it's, video gaming, or, reality shows and all this. And it's like people started craving human interaction. They
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be able to have human interaction. They wanted to be able to see their friends and hang with their friends and go see their family and do all of these things. And I know that I've talked to, several people that didn't really do that before.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were just going about their life, like, it was the same thing every day, every week. And
Mm-hmm.
with this, they realized the importance of the relationships in their life. And to me, that was like the most beautiful thing
Right.
that I started
Yeah.
to see come out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and
People
then,
started to value more, realize how important the social interaction and the relationships they have with other people, how important that is over all of that day-to-day stuff that we get lost in. Well, I have to be here, I have to be there, I have to drive my kid here or there. And I think one of the most beautiful things that I saw was, especially when the weather started to get warmer here, um, I started seeing parents outside with their kids. And I know this still happens, but not as much as I was seeing. I was seeing parents, usually you see adults going for a jog, and I saw whole families going for a jog. Or I
yeah.
saw, during the week in midday, the middle of the day, a dad playing ball with his kid in the backyard. It's,
Yes, I remember that. I remember that. I
I think I
remember when
told you
that,
that probably because I was just so
yeah.
touched by it.
Yeah, I
The
do.
things
And
that you don't
also
see during the work week,
the social distancing get-togethers in the parking lot. You see people
Right.
sitting in their trunks
Yeah.
and with their hatches open or whatever. Um, I think I
Yeah.
was on the phone with you one time when that happened. I was going to get dog food.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like,
You're like,
"Look,
they're having
Lindsay, look!" I was like, I flipped it around, and I'm like, "These people are social distancing," and they're like,
fun.
because the need and the desire for that human interaction and that connection and that
Mhm.
love and energetic exchange really superseded the fear. And
Mhm.
that's when we
Yeah.
started to see this shift happening. But for me, one of equally was absolutely beautiful
Mhm.
was the creativity that
Creativity,
was
yes.
coming from people
Yeah.
out of this. And I know,
Finding,
me personally, I am going to give a short blip of my own personal
do it.
experience here. Um, was I started to have the desire to do things that I haven't done before that I've wanted to do. Now I am an artistic person. I do a lot of art. I like to create things. I like, all those things. But I bought a ukulele. I've always wanted a ukulele ever since
Mhm.
I watched one of the on America's Got Talent. But so I purchased a ukulele and I started to teach myself how to play this instrument. And I was creating joy within
Right.
myself, which was also being exuded out into the collective consciousness. And I also, with my son, I was talking to my son about how he actually brought up how there were a lot of memes and a lot of like jokes and things, hashtags going around, that was like creating fear or mocking on a lower vibration of COVID in some shape, form, or fashion.
Mhm.
And I told my son, I said, we should start a hashtag and call it hashtag Corona Passion. So him and I started this hashtag, Corona Passion, and it was about taking this time. You have nothing else to do. Take this
Mhm.
time and fuel the things that you're passionate about. Because
Yes.
when you are focusing and putting your attention, time, and energy into things that you are passionate about and that you love, it creates joy, it creates
Mhm.
happiness, and you're raising the vibration not only within yourself, but within others around you.
Yeah, within the planet.
Yeah.
And that's what we need during that time more than anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just really quickly, I do want to say where you said, on the planet, it's, a lot of people have this mentality of, well, I'm only one person. How can I
Mhm.
make a difference all by myself? And when you start to embody the vibrations of these emotions, you are putting that out again, because we're all connected. We're all
Mhm.
connected energetically.
Right.
So yes, little old you does affect the world at large. It does play a part in the collective consciousness. You are a special, unique piece to the whole.
Mhm.
So you do aid in that way, whether it be positive or negative. So by
Mhm.
staying in that place of passion and joy and the higher vibration, you do impact the world at large, I think.
Yeah. On a scientific level, when you break down every particle into its smallest form, there is no place where you end and someone else begins or something else begins. Every single thing, every particle is touching and is connected. And we really do. And everything broken down to the smallest little bit is just a vibration. Those atoms, they're vibrations. So everything is a vibration, and if we can change our vibration, we change everything that we touch. It's like the ripple effect. Yeah,
That's true.
so you do make a difference a little bit at a time.
You are powerful enough,
Yeah.
carry the power within you to make change everywhere you go, and
Right.
through everything that you do. So
Yeah.
all right, so was there anything else that you saw where you started to see the shift go from fear to change and empowerment, awakening?
Let me think. Well, it's funny to think there are a lot of people who just missed all of this, that missed the boat and just stayed in that fear and stayed in that woe is me. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that we always have a choice over how we react to things. And I think that is part of why we wanted to talk about this too, is to give people a choice, because I think that some people don't know that there is an option not to fall into the spiral of fear and hopelessness and worry that the world is just, is it basically just falling apart.
Right. And
Yeah.
I think that we're going to touch a little bit more on that in our next episode, part 2 of this series, where a good portion of that is thanks to conditioned beliefs,
Right.
taught to us, whether it's through our family or society, and things that have happened to us as children that we've carried with us up until this point. And so for some, it is really hard to be able to see that perspective, which some very wise woman once said that perception is everything. And you have one or two choices. You can see it in a place of fear or lower vibration or lack thereof or pain or loss or whatever, or you can choose to view it in a place of, how is this serving me? What is this teaching me? How is this helping me to become my best self? Or helping me heal things that I'm not really seeing, because our reactions to things is a very good clue or idea of what's inside of us that's not serving us. So
Right. Of where
perception
we are.
is everything. So
Yeah. I just had a really good thought to add to that. I just lost it.
great part.
But really what it comes down to is that all of this is, has been a way to teach us, that I'm losing it. You go ahead with this. I had something really good.
Teaching us, you mean, like, where are you trying to go with this? Teaching us like how to see these things in our reality, or teaching us, oh, I think I know where you're going with this. Teaching us to speak and own our truth?
No, that wasn't it.
Okay. Well, I thought I had it. I thought that was a good one.
No, I had something and I'm like, it was because I'm trying to bring it full circle and be like, to sum it up, this is how we're advancing into this like new way of being. But I can't, what the heck was it?
The way that I think that this is advancing us collectively and also personally is it's waking us up to the reality. This shook us to the core on a collective level in our communities, in our nations, to wake up. And it's like the way that the systems were handling things, whether it was through the schools or through the communities, or the way that each, here in the states were making choices for us. a lot of people started like standing up and they're like, wait a second, like this
Mhm.
isn't going to work for me. Or so I started to see where like it really shook people awake and realizing I am being affected. Like I have a voice, I have
Mhm.
a choice,
Yeah,
and um starting to be aware of what's going on around them, because
right.
when we were
Instead of
so
letting
consumed within our
yeah,
day-to-day lives and everything that we were going through, people were oblivious to what was going on around them,
yeah. Or letting
and
other people take care of it and
making
not
choices and decisions for
making
them.
them for them. Yeah,
And
and
it
not
goes
doing
back to
that.
what did I say that was? Savior syndrome.
Yeah.
So people started stepping out of the savior syndrome when they realized there's no one coming to save us. We
Yeah.
have to save
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So by saving ourselves, it's like a lot of people saw that as, well, then I'm going to have to say something, or I mean, I've seen that in my own community, especially with,
Mhm.
going back to school.
Yeah.
People are, starting to say, well, this isn't going to work for me. This isn't going to work
Mhm.
for my kids. And
Yeah.
where before parents were like, I mean, they had commercials on TV with Staples, like the parents are like, like just shooting it down on the card. It's like, yes, kids are
Yeah.
going back to school.
Yeah.
But it's like, whoa, hold on. Like, this is what's going on around me. And this, so
Yeah.
that makes
And I
sense.
think we're going to touch on that more in the next episode too,
Yeah.
about like really people realizing what is serving them in their lives, um, and what no longer is
Yeah.
after all of this.
And
Yeah.
what the reality looked like and does
Right.
look like after being, shaken
Yeah.
to the
Hmm.
core and awake.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what I wanted to get at was that in moving toward the trust, I want to talk a little bit more about how you start to move from a place of fear to trust, because so many of us are so consumed with fear that it's like, how can I get rid of this? How can I become one of those people who does see it from a higher perspective? Like, where do you
Right.
begin? I guess I'm going to say for myself, well, I mean, this is part of the spiritual awakening process, is moving. And this is, COVID or not COVID, you have to start realizing that there's this bigger, grander thing that is just, um, which it's like the underlying energy in everything of good. We talked about like this underlying energy of low vibration, but when you reach this high vibration, it's all about divine intelligence. So this is like a highly evolved energetic intelligence that really helps things fall into place for us if we let it. And what our job in it is not so much to think about it, it's to let ourselves be guided. When we do that, we start to train our brain not to go into fear, because we realize that when we trust and have faith in this divine intelligence, things work out for our highest good.
Yeah. I was going to say, I was thinking, I'm like, well, if I had to explain to someone how to move from fear into trust, I think back to like, how did I do that in my past,
Myself, yeah.
and for me, what was solid for me was finding that when I could take myself into a place of gratitude,
Yeah.
I was easily able to follow up with trust,
Hmm.
because we can focus on, all the fears of the unknown. But again, we don't know what's going to happen. We can create it in our mind, but is it really going to happen? No one knows. The
Hmm.
one thing you do know is, or that you can focus on, is the things that you do know, the things that are solid in your life. And all of those things you can look back and they're all blessings, whether it's, your body works, well, like you're able to walk, you're able to talk, you're able to see it, whatever it is, whatever you're, that you're thankful for. I have a roof over my head. I'm able to eat. My children are safe. My family's okay. And then, you slowly move in and you can grow this and expand it into the littlest things. I woke up today and the sun is
Right.
shining.
I was going to say,
And
for some people, it might not be I have a roof over my head. It might not be
right.
my kids are safe. So, but you can start completely small. And it can be what you said, I woke up today. I'm
Mhm.
breathing.
I was just gonna say, you could take it down to the most basic. basic level, and it's that you have air in your lungs and
Yeah.
you are breathing, and you might not be happy with what you're experiencing in the moment.
Hmm.
No matter what it is, you're learning from it, and it's helping you to grow and evolve and to become a better, a better version of yourself. So
Yeah.
there's always something to be grateful for. And when you can focus on gratitude
Hmm.
and start small, aim small, miss small, you
Hmm.
can start with, focusing on just a few things and then trying to grow that each and every day. You will find yourself solidly sitting in faith and trust,
Hmm.
because you'll realize, and I remember saying this too, everything I've ever needed has always been there. It always showed up in some form or fashion. My bills
Hmm.
were always paid. I always had food on the table. I always, or whatever it was. So that helped me build and harness that faith. And with
Hmm.
faith,
It really is. And I always see it on a brain level of like, we have to retrain our brain to believe that it is possible to have faith without thoroughly analyzing every single thing.
yeah,
Yeah. Because we think that thinking is the way to create more, but really it is stepping into this place of almost surrendering that part of yourself. Obviously, you still have to think and you still have to make decisions, but making them from a place of following, like what we talked about, following your intuition, following your gut. What feels right to me? What feels good?
right. So like surrendering to the, the monkey brain, like,
Mhm.
that's what I call it, the monkey brain,
Yeah.
and taking yourself out of there and bringing yourself into the present moment. And
Hmm.
like you said, surrendering. If you can surrender to that, the craziness that our brains can
Yeah.
create, and it's
Hmm.
it's doing it, it's going into overdrive because it's trying to protect us on an
Right.
instinctual level, but we're
Hmm.
not in a place where we need that to be the front runner of our
Right.
choices and decisions that we're
Yeah.
making for ourselves and for others. So not anymore.
Right. I
Anyways,
do.
that
Yeah.
was
And I want to point out that we as humans have evolved really like on a mentally and emotional level so fast compared to the course of history that actually our bodies have not learned, have had not have had time to catch up. So we still have these old, when we go into fight or flight response because of an emotion, that's because our body is trained or has been made to go into these defense mechanisms if we feel fear,
right.
and it doesn't know the difference between an emotional fear or a physical fear. So it actually, like on on a body level, the blood in your brain actually drains and goes to your muscles when you go into fight or flight, because you need to run or you need to fight to keep yourself alive.
Right.
And when it does that, it takes the blood away from the thinking and we don't think clearly. So that's another reason why when we do spiral into fear, we're not being our best self, we're not being our whole self. And it's like the worst time to make decisions
Yes,
because
because
there's nothing going on up there.
right. Well, your brain's computing at a, a record speed of
Right.
all the possible scenarios that it can protect you and keep you safe.
Yeah.
And by doing that, your brain's running a million miles a minute. You cannot be present. And when you're not present,
Right.
you can't make sound. You don't have sound decision making.
Hmm.
And also, because we're talking about on a physical level,
Hmm.
your body produces the hormone cortisol.
Yeah.
And cortisol, depending on how much of that is, being pumped into your body, can create debilitating symptoms.
Hmm.
You'll like stiffness and aches and headaches and nausea. And I mean, there's so much. And over the course of
Hmm.
time can really cause damage to
Yeah.
you on a physical level.
Yeah. So you
So it
literally
does.
can make yourself sick, worry yourself sick. There's a reason why that's
Right.
a saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've touched on how it affects us on a, on a mind level, on a body level, and then
Hmm.
on a spiritual soul level.
Yeah.
Fear affects us in a way that it detaches us from our true essence and our higher knowing.
And the
And it,
divine. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the divine. And
Hmm.
so when you find, like how we just said, when you go into that space of being present
Hmm. And the
and you're,
gratitude.
yes, and gratitude, then you've centered yourself, and then you're able to connect with yourself on a soul level and be able to
All
heed
right. Yeah.
the guidance that you need.
Hmm.
So those are all the ways that we feel that they kind of affect you through the mind, body, and soul. So I
Yeah.
think we should touch base, because we'll probably be wrapping this up here shortly, but
Mhm.
touching base on what are ways that we can, um, or ideas or suggestions we can give to help others
For
stay
moving
out of a place of
forward
fear.
through this, stay out of the fear. Yeah, and
Mhm.
this is not just for our current situation. It's for all of the situations going on, because it really is. I saw a meme that I loved, and it was like, it was now, oh, it's riot season. I didn't take down my COVID decorations yet.
Yeah, yeah.
It really felt like that. It was like, I didn't get through processing this, and now we have something else. So really, it's been one thing after another. And it really is, this year has been a really big jump in energy from a one way of being moving into another. And I think one of the first steps that someone can take in all of this to really be able to brave the storms is to be self-aware, to know, to watch yourself and see, how am I reacting? I think what you had touched on, whatever the way that you react, it's like showing you on the outside what is going on inside of you, or what you still have left to heal,
Right.
right?
So what your external reality, a lot of people try to change the things. If I change this on the outside, then I can
Mhm.
change my reality on the inside. And it's actually the opposite.
Right.
What you are experiencing in your external reality is just mirroring what's going on internally.
Yeah. Yeah. So it really is important to be self-aware, look at yourself and say, like, if I'm lashing out in fear, or I'm lashing out in anger, then I must have that within me. What is causing that? What's really causing that?
Yes, being your own therapist. Start
Right.
asking yourself questions. And
Yeah.
when you answer that question, ask another question based off of that answer and
Hmm.
keep going, because almost guaranteed each time, depending on how many questions you have to ask until
Hmm.
you get to the root of it, you will start to see and have realizations about these aspects of yourself that you never even knew were there. And it's as simple
Yeah.
as asking yourself questions.
Yeah. And it's funny, because a lot of us don't want to go there. A lot of us don't want to, and you don't even might not even realize this is a fear for you, that asking yourself the questions starts to dig into something that feels uncomfortable, because over the years, our energy bodies create layers and walls to protect us, what it thinks it's protecting us from. And it's so the more that you can ask yourself questions, it might feel uncomfortable. But the funny thing is, I don't want to say funny because it is funny, like it's almost silly, is that when you do get to the root cause of your reactions to life, a lot of times it's something really minute, that when you get to it, you're like, I'm afraid to look into this. I'm afraid to know why I feel this way. But when you get to the root, sometimes it's as simple as, like, something silly that happened in childhood, where you formed a belief and then you went with it, and it became it that you built on it slowly, over the years, and turned it into a whole way of being that doesn't serve you.
Right, right. And again, this isn't funny. It's, I guess, more peculiar because as you grow and in age with these beliefs that you've created, if it's something small in childhood, it's going to grow and get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Mhm.
But by the time you get back to it, it could be the fact that you know you your mom wanted you to come on and scurry on with her in the grocery store aisle, and you were throwing a fit, and she said, fine, you want to stay here, you can stay here. And like, she moves around the corner still watching you, but you've just created a fear of abandonment.
Mhm.
So it can
Right.
be as simple as that.
Right.
Obviously, yes, it can be larger things too,
Right.
but
Yes. Uh-huh.
if you find yourself in a place of fear of asking those questions, be kind with yourself, be gentle, and just say, okay, that's enough for now. But
Mhm.
persistence is key. Don't give up on it. Just give
Yeah.
yourself some time and come back to it,
Mhm.
and change your questions to where it's not so intrusive or threatening to you.
Yeah, one of our
Just don't give
favorite
up.
ways. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but one of our favorite ways together, because we dig at each other all day, every day. We actually took COVID and quarantine as a time for a lot of self-reflection, but the way we work together is we bring it out in each other.
Yep.
And one of our favorite ways to do that is to make a suggestion. What if the reason behind this is this? What if I could be happy? What if,
Yeah, or if you're like, I feel this way, or this is what happened. Well, what if maybe, you know, such and such. So yeah, we
Yeah,
do
it's a
know.
way of casually, it's a way um of suggesting it to
Provide,
yourself. What were you gonna
I
say?
was going to say providing a different perspective.
Yeah, yeah.
Because sometimes it's like seeing forest through the trees. You're so stuck on your truth or your perspective that you can't really see a different way of looking at it. So
Yeah. Well, I was going to say more on like a ego level is that when you can suggest something instead of saying, why are you doing this? You know, it's like if you were asking a little kid, like, did you break this? Um, and it's like, they jump back and it's like, you know, they're feeling attacked. So you want to treat yourself when you're talking to yourself like a child that you want to get an answer out of. You're not going to attack them because that's going to shut them down. You want to make suggestions or like almost use, I was going to say like use reverse psychology if it really is that scary. Use it on yourself because those are ways that psychologists use to get into people's the lower aspects of people, like not lower, but like to dig under the surface because it doesn't scare people away. And you really do have to do this for yourself.
yeah, I
Yeah.
can give a funny example for that one.
Okay.
There was a situation where my son was throwing fit. He was in lower vibrations. He was upset. He was frustrated because he wanted to get up and go. He wanted to do things, and he had to get his shoes on. And I was not able to help him in that moment, and he was falling apart. And I was like, you can do this. You can do this. Like I thought I'm encouraging him. That little change of reverse psychology was actually, you actually participated in this
Oh yeah.
with my youngest son. And Lindsay had said to him, wait, how did you were
I
like,
wonder.
I wonder if you can actually do that. Do you think you can do that? I don't
Yeah.
know.
And
And
it was
he's like,
breaking it down into baby steps too. Was not, I wonder if you can put on your shoes. It was, I wonder if you can unvelcro them. And then he's like, yeah, I can do that. I wonder if you could slip your foot inside. He's like, yeah, of course. I wonder if you could close that strap again.
yeah,
and
yeah.
the next thing
Or
you know, he's got his shoes on.
yes, and I have very passionate Spitfire children, and so I think at one point, if maybe this was a different one, but where you had said, I don't know if you can do that, and it's like, oh, watch me, I'll show
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
And he stepped into a place of empowerment
Right.
instead of being the
Yeah.
victim, and
Mhm.
so that can be
Yeah.
helpful in times.
Yeah.
Another one that I did want to touch base on, just because we had said, stepping into the present moment and
Mhm.
being centered or being present within that moment. I know in the beginning, for me, in my spiritual awakening, that was a difficult thing for me to learn how to do. I didn't know quite what that looked like or how to get there. And one of it's an exercise that I absolutely love. This works very, very well. Is stepping into your senses, your five senses,
Oh
and
yeah.
so when you can pull yourself into your five senses, or what's a better way to put this, like, so when you're up in your mind and you're in anxiety and you're in fear and you're flighting,
Hmm.
so you're like
Yeah.
leaving, trying to leave your body, so to say,
Hmm.
because it's not safe to be here. So to pull yourself back into the present moment is to be aware of your surroundings, and you can do that through focusing on and finding one thing that affects each one of your physical senses. So one thing you can see, one thing you can hear, one thing you can touch, one thing you can smell, those things. And then once you do that, you'll notice that you're back into your body, you're
Hmm.
centered, and you're back into the present moment because you've pulled yourself into the your physical awareness.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad you touched on that because that is, yeah, for those of you who can't, it's that you can't talk themselves out of the fear, feeling the fear on a body level. That is a great place to go. And actually, we had done that in therapy with my daughter. We had learned that, and it's something that is done. You know, it's something that is suggested a lot with therapists. But the way that we did it was list five things you can, like, what are five things you can hear, and then it was what are four things you can see, what are three things you can smell, what are two things that you can
it's like
yeah, so you can go through it that way too. But I love it is like touching on all the senses because it really does bring you back to body awareness, feeling yourself inside of your body instead of racing around and scattering your energy. And it makes you stronger. That's the number one thing you need to realize during this, is that all of these techniques make you stronger, make you more empowered, help you make better decisions, and help you follow your guidance. Then you can, when you're focused and centered, you can follow your heart, which is going to lead you to higher places.
Yes. You're becoming your own savior.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And that is the goal.
All
You
right,
are your own savior. You are the only one who can save you. Done.
That's right. You are your own superhero.
Yes.
Last but not least, what is one piece of advice that you would give people to help connect and stay, to pull themselves out of fear on a soul level?
On a soul level.
Because we've done mind, we've done body, and now we're with soul. What are some exercises or ways that you could help explain better to practice raising your vibration, or your pulling your, or acknowledging and using your intuition more? Well, we kind of touched on that. So like, what's a good way to raise your vibration?
Raise your vibration in general. The happy, like anything that gets you going. So we touched on following a passion or starting something that is your passion. Being like surrounding yourself with the people that bring that out in you. So if you notice that the group around you are a bunch of negative people, it's okay to start to detach from that and start finding something else. Even if you do have to do it over Zoom, if you're doing it
right,
right now. But yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm gonna steal it. Segue. If you follow us on social media, you would see that Lindsay actually put up a post today about and talking about relationships and being like, that kind of touching on the relationships of and how they affect us along our spiritual growth. And one of the things that she had mentioned at the very end was how being around another soul in a place of being in like childlike wonder, joy, and happiness moves energy like crazy. And when you find yourself in a place of fear or fight or flight, you're stuck. You're not moving. Your energy is not moving anywhere. It has sucked up, and it is in the core of your being, because that's a protective mechanism. So when you step into that place of joy and happiness and childlike wonder, good example, like you said, going outside, going to the parks, going and playing, being around people that make you happy, you're getting that energy moving. And the faster you can get that energy to move, and the more energy you can move, you will pull yourself out of that state of fear.
Yeah. And it's something that's so simple. And you think that like, it almost seems too simple to make big changes, but really on an energetic level, the things that bring us joy, well, when we have joy coursing through our bodies, the energy of that heals us. It can heal us on a physical level. It can heal us on an emotional level without us doing anything other than being in the moment and feeling good. Yeah. So, the seeking therapy, the self-talk, all of that is good, but you can skip all that if you can find a way to bring joy into your life. You really can. Not skip it, but you can, it's like a little shortcut.
Yeah, it's like
a lot of it.
You're taking the express lane.
Yeah. It like automatically releases energy, it transmutes, it changes the energy of your body into something more positive and creates more positivity. It slowly grows. Yeah.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah.
So I think we have pretty much covered, we spitfired everything we could here within a decent amount of time about the topic of fear and how we are being affected by that with our current situations on a collective level and on a personal level as well.
And how we can change it, take it, change it, be aware of it, and different techniques that can help us get out of it.
Right.
Yeah. And
so is there any,
from, a higher perspective and move into spiritual growth through it. Done.
Got it. And we're done. Okay. But all right. So I think that will do it for us today here on this episode. Next week, our episode will be focusing on end of cycles and the breaking down of false beliefs and conditioned beliefs. Again, this is all on a collective level as well as on a personal level.
And this is all relating to current events.
Right.
Yeah.
Aiding in our spiritual evolution.
Yes. Yes.
So make sure to tune in and join us next week for that episode. And then also follow us, share, like us, our social media pages, so that we can spread the word and help as many people as we possibly can as we journey together through all of these changes. I think it's so important because everyone, including ourselves, need to know that we are not alone, that we are all in this together, and we got this. You got this. You got this.
And it doesn't have to be hard. It really, no.
And you don't have to walk this path alone.
You don't have to walk it alone. Exactly.
Alone.
Yeah.
So. All right. Well, until next time, thank you for joining us here on Soaring Through the Depths. I am Andrea Lauren.
And I'm Lindsay Marin. Thank you.
We'll see you next week. Thanks.
Thanks. Thanks for joining us this week on Soaring Through the Depths. Make sure to visit us on Instagram and Facebook at Soaring Through the Depths, where you can catch important news, information about upcoming shows, free giveaways, and exclusive content.
While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on Podbean, or you could simply tell a friend. Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking subscribe button now. Until then, this is Soaring Through the Depths
with Lindsay Marin
and Andrea Lauren.